After years of the DCEU feeling like a cinematic group project where no one talked to each other, it finally collapsed under its own chaos. A universe built on gods, symbols, and modern myths became a mess of panic edits, tonal whiplash, and executives reacting in real time to Twitter. It wasn't just inconsistent, it was exhausting. By the end, it felt less like a shared universe and more like a cry for help, set to a licensed pop song. So when James Gunn took over DC Studios, the reaction wasn't, "Oh, hell yeah." It was more like a cautious exhale. Not just excitement, but relief. Because Gunn didn't show up promising to out-Marvel Marvel or fast-track a crossover by movie 3. Instead, he did something radical. He started talking about themes, about why these characters matter, about superheroes as stories, about people, not just brands with release dates. And that's what's been quietly refreshing about the new DCU so far. These projects aren't sprinting toward a team-up. They're taking their time asking what it actually means to be a hero in this world. What does hope look like when the world kind of sucks? What does goodness mean when it's easier to be cynical? What does it mean to be powerful and choose kindness anyway? It's all very sincere, but not in a way that takes itself too seriously. Because Gunn's DC isn't afraid to be fun. It understands that comic book stories can be emotional, weird, colorful, and yes, sometimes a little goofy without undercutting their message. There's a confidence here that was completely missing before. These movies and shows know what they are, why they exist, and most importantly, who they're for. No panic addicts, no tonal identity crisis, just vibes, surprisingly good vibes. And while James Gunn is shaping the larger universe, Matt Reeves is off in his own corner crafting something darker, more grounded, and intensely character-driven. Different tone, but with the same respect. Where Gunn leans into myth and humanity, Reeves leans into psychology and obsession. Two completely different approaches somehow coexisting without stepping on each other's toes, which, considering DC's history, feels like a small miracle. So today I want to look at what the new DCU has given us so far, what these projects are saying, why they work, and why, for the first time in a long time, DC actually feels like it understands itself. No panic, no rushing, just stories about heroes, meaning, and maybe finally getting it right. Before we get into all of that, I feel like I should start doing call to actions. So if you are liking the video, please subscribe, like, whatever. I don't really care. So, yeah.
Bro, what the
video now, enter now, video here. Put video here now, okay?
Ratatouille, what do you got?
Bird, bird, bird. Bird.
Now it. Stay off the comm.
Okay, technically this is still part of the DCEU, but, you know, this one's actually, like, good, so it can't possibly be a part of whatever that was. This movie is everything you could possibly want from a comic book film. It's bold, beautiful, bloody, and bursting with personality. It's hilarious without undercutting the stakes, bizarre without losing focus, and packed with heart in ways you don't even realize are coming until it hits you like a brick. It's confident enough to be absurd and sincere at the same time. A balance most superhero films are terrified to even attempt. What's especially impressive is how every character, no matter how ridiculous, gets a moment to shine, and it never feels forced, not once. From whatever the fuck was wrong with Polka Dot Man to James Gunn treats every character as if they matter, because within the story, they do. That sense of care elevates the chaos into something really meaningful. The action is phenomenal. It's kinetic, inventive, and gorgeously shot, with Gunn bringing clarity and flair to every set piece. You always know where you are, what's happening, and why it matters. The violence is gloriously over the top, but it's never empty. Every explosion, every death, every insane visual choice is either a punchline, a character beat, or an emotional turn. Nothing is wasted. And somehow, amidst all the carnage and profanity, this movie makes you deeply care about a team of absolute nobodies and monsters. These aren't heroes, they're broken people, screw-ups, and lost causes, but the film believes that even the worst people are still people. The humor is sharp and fearless, but it never punches down. It comes from character, not irony. The jokes land because the movie isn't embarrassed by itself. It knows it's ridiculous, and it leans in fully. The visuals pop with color and texture, the soundtrack slaps, and the cast is completely locked in, giving performances that feel loose, committed, and alive. Underneath all the insanity, there is a surprisingly strong emotional core. This movie is about connection, about how even the most damaged people can find meaning when they stop seeing themselves as disposable. It explores how these broken individuals form bonds, how shared trauma turns into trust, and how purpose can emerge from the unlikeliest places. The relationship between Bloodsport and Ratcatcher 2 is especially powerful. It's tender, sincere, and quietly devastating. Their arc about guilt, self-worth, and the possibility of choosing to be better grounds the entire film. Ratcatcher 2's belief that even rats have value becomes the thematic spine of the story, and it hits harder than it has any right to. What makes The Suicide Squad truly special is how emotionally intelligent it is. It actually respects its fucking characters. I wish other movies did that. It lets them grow, fail, bond, and change in ways that feel organic. These people don't become heroes, they become human. And in a genre that's often treating its characters like chess pieces, I really appreciate that. This film is a tour de force that's not only the best thing to ever come out of the DCEU, but is one of the best superhero movies ever made, in my opinion. And also, in my opinion, it's the second best DC movie of all time. But it's not number one! The Batman isn't just a great comic book movie, it's a straight-up cinematic masterpiece. Every frame is saturated with intention, atmosphere, and craft. Matt Reeves has created something that feels operatic and moody and grounded at the largest scale possible. It's never chasing spectacle or fan service, instead prioritizing its tone, character, and immersion. From its opening moments, the film pulls you into Gotham's rain-soaked corruption-ridden soul and refuses to let go. This isn't a city you visit, it's one you're trapped inside. Robert Pattinson delivers the most emotionally layered and vulnerable portrayal of Batman I think I've ever seen on screen. This Bruce Wayne isn't polished or mythic, he's raw, bruised, obsessive, and profoundly damaged. His performance feels eternal, haunted, and deeply human. The supporting cast only strengthens that foundation. All give performances that feel grounded and lived in, each contributing to the film's noir-drenched tapestry. These aren't caricatures or comic book exaggerations. They feel like real people, shaped by a decaying world that's slowly rotting from the inside out. The action is stunning, brutal, visceral, and gorgeously choreographed, but it never overwhelms the story. Every fight feels physical, messy, and dangerous, reinforcing the idea that violence has weight and consequence. But the true standout, of course, is the cinematography. Greg Fraser delivers what is not only the most beautifully shot comic book film ever, but arguably one of the most visually striking films of the decade, of the century. The lighting is sculptural, the color palette steeped in shadow and melancholy, and the compositions feel deliberate and painterly. Darkness isn't just an aesthetic here, it's a thematic language. Faces disappear into shadow, eyes glint through rain, and Gotham itself feels perpetually half-submerged, as if the city is drowning in its own sins. The film uses light sparingly and purposefully, allowing moments of illumination to feel revelatory rather than decorative. These images don't just look incredible, they communicate mood, psychology, and moral decay. There are shots in this film that bore into your mind, and they just don't leave. Not because they're flashy, but because they're so raw and intimate feeling. The writing is equally precise, leaning fully into Batman's detective roots without sacrificing psychological depth. The narrative unfolds like a slow-burning crime thriller rather than a traditional superhero story, allowing tension to build gradually and deliberately. Every scene adds another layer of unease, every clue another piece of a larger moral puzzle. This is a story about identity, legacy, and fear told with patience and confidence. It trusts us, the audience, to sit with discomfort, to live in uncertainty, and to engage with the mystery on its own terms. At the emotional core of The Batman is Bruce Wayne's evolving connection with Selina Kyle, a relationship that begins to fracture his self-imposed isolation. Their bond isn't defined by conventional romance, it grows out of recognition. Bruce sees in Selina a version of himself shaped by violence and loss, someone surviving by striking first before the world can strike back. But he also sees her resilience, her refusal to collapse under the weight of what's been taken from her. Selina, in turn, understands Bruce's damage with unsettling clarity. She recognizes the cost of his anger because she carries her own, and in each other they find a rare sense of being truly seen. Through that relationship, the film confronts one of its central questions. How long can trauma define you before it becomes a prison? Bruce has spent years believing that suffering is his responsibility, that pain is the only way to honor the dead and make sense of his past. Selina represents an alternative path. She's driven by loss as well, but her pain pushes her toward protection and connection rather than self-destruction. She fights for people, and Bruce fights because he doesn't know who he is without the fighting. And when he sees her standing on the edge of crossing a line that could consume her, he recognizes the same darkness he's been drowning in since his childhood. The recognition culminates in the moment when Bruce tells her, "You've paid enough." It's not just an attempt to stop Selina, it's a confession. For Bruce, trauma has always been treated like a debt, something to be worked off through endless nights of violence and guilt. In telling Selina she's paid enough, he's finally articulating a truth he's never allowed himself to accept. Suffering isn't currency. Revenge isn't closure. In that moment, Bruce becomes more than vengeance. He becomes someone capable of mercy, compassion, and the belief that healing is possible. The relationship ultimately reshapes Bruce's understanding of what Batman is meant to be. Selina shows him how to carry anger without letting it consume you, and he shows her that she isn't as alone as she believes. They don't end up together, but the questions they force each other to confront linger. How much of yourself are you willing to sacrifice? When does justice become self-punishment? And when do you finally allow yourself to stop hurting? That simple line, "You've paid enough," becomes the emotional thesis of the entire film. A recognition that healing begins when you stop insisting that pain is all you deserve. One of the film's most powerful emotional shifts arrives when Bruce finally looks up. Not inward, not downward, but outward. Throughout the story, he's a creature of the shadows, a figure meant to terrify. Even those he saves recoil from him, unable to distinguish rescue from threat. That fear reinforces his belief that vengeance is the only language Gotham understands. But in the aftermath of the flood, as the city literally and symbolically collapses, something changes. When Bruce descends into the wreckage with a flare, refusing to disappear into darkness, he becomes a guide instead of a specter. That image, Batman leading people through rubble, is the film's visual thesis. He's no longer here to haunt the broken. He's there to lift them out. This transformation crystallizes in the moment with the girl on the stretcher. She clings to him, unwilling to let go, trusting him not as a symbol of fear, but as a source of safety. It is the inverse of the opening scene, where people flinch at his presence. This single gesture speaks volumes. Gotham is ready to see him differently because he's finally ready to be something different. Bruce's emotional arc collapses into that contrast. At the beginning, he believes pain must be weaponized, and by the end, he understands it must be transcended. Vengeance isolates, hope connects. And when Bruce looks up at the rising sun as the helicopter lifts her away, he's seeing the possibility of who he could become. Not a warning, not a myth of terror, but a guardian people can reach for without fear. In that upward gaze is the acceptance that Gotham doesn't just need punishment, it needs healing, and so does he. The film closes not with vengeance echoing through the streets, but with the quiet emergence of hope, the kind that begins when even one frightened child feels safe in Batman's arms. Every frame of the Batman feels crafted with deep reverence for the character that's endured for generations. It doesn't just portray Batman, it listens to him. And to me, this isn't just the definitive Batman movie. It isn't just the definitive DC movie. It's the definitive comic book film. And personally, I think it's probably gonna stay that way. It finally happened. DC is back! Superman is the kind of bold, sincere, emotionally rich film that's been missing from the modern superhero landscape for far too long. This isn't just a return to form, it's a reinvigoration of what the character can mean in a contemporary cinema. The heart is there, the idealism is intact, and most importantly, the film believes in Superman. Not as a brand, not as a relic, but as a living symbol that still has something vital to say. Visually, the film is stunning, the cinematography is deliberate and breathtaking, especially in theaters, with a genuine sense of scale and reverence that elevates even the quietest moments. The camera lingers on small gestures, subtle reactions, and fleeting expressions, grounding the mythic elements in human detail. Superman feels larger than life, but never distant. The film understands that awe isn't just found in spectacle, it's found in stillness, in empathy, in watching someone choose kindness when no one is forcing them to. The CGI is similarly well handled. It's not just technically impressive, it's tasteful. The effects never overwhelm the story or collapse into visual noise. Instead, they serve the narrative, enhancing key moments rather than competing with them. The action is clean, powerful, and readable. Every hit feels impactful, every movement intentional. It's refreshing to see superhero action that understands restraint, weight, and clarity rather than defaulting to excess. From a writing standpoint, the film is admittedly a little overstuffed, but there's genuine care in how characters speak and relate to one another. The story is paced to allow ideas to breathe, giving emotional beats room to land instead of rushing to the next plot point. That said, this is where the film's one major flaw emerges. Beyond some forgivable exposition, there are moments where the script doesn't fully trust the audience. Certain themes and internal conflicts are occasionally spelled out more plainly than necessary, slightly undercutting the elegance of scenes that otherwise communicate beautifully through performance and subtext. It's not constant, and it never derails the experience, but it is noticeable. Even so, that flaw is easy to forgive when the thematic core is this strong. The way Superman handles emotion is deeply compelling. The film repeatedly affirms that the feelings we experience, fear, love, doubt, hope, are not weaknesses to overcome, but the very things that make us human, and more importantly, those feelings are okay to feel. The tone strikes a near-perfect balance, neither grim nor overly light, but emotionally honest. There's real warmth here, and a sense of responsibility that isn't framed as a curse, but as something meaningful and inspiring. That warmth is carried almost entirely by the performances. David Cornsweet brings a quiet strength and innate kindness to Clark Kent that feels completely authentic. He doesn't imitate the previous Superman, he inhabits the role in his own way, embodying decency without irony or self-consciousness. This is a Superman who listens, who cares, who feels, and opposite him, Nicholas Hoult delivers a genuinely formidable performance. Lex Luthor is so calculated, intense, and razor-focused. Hoult never lets him slip into caricature. The hatred, the resentment, the simmering rage, it's all there, but it's controlled and terrifying. This is instantly one of the most compelling comic book villains put to screen, driven by ideology as much as ego. What makes Superman feel so special is how proudly it embraces its source material. There's no embarrassment here, no winking irony, no attempt to deconstruct the character just to appear modern or edgy. Instead, the film leans fully into what makes Superman endure: compassion, responsibility, and the belief that being good still matters. It understands not just who Superman is, but why he exists. This is the Superman movie we've been waiting for. Not just because it's well made, but because it understands the soul of the character. It reminds us that hope isn't naive, kindness isn't weak, and sincerity isn't outdated. And if this is the direction DC is heading, then for the first time in a really long time, we're in very good hands. What ultimately separates these films from so many of DC's previous efforts isn't budget, scale, or even visual ambition. It's intent. For years, the DCEU chased godlike iconography, treating its heroes as distant myths first and people second. The imagery was grand, the symbolism was heavy, but the emotional connection was often missing. Those films wanted us to revere their characters before we understood them. What The Suicide Squad, The Batman, and Superman prove is that audiences don't connect to gods because they're powerful. We connect to them when they feel human. Each of these stories succeed because it starts small. They aren't obsessed with legacy building or universe shaping. They're concerned with eternal conflict, emotional truth, and personal stakes. Whether it's a group of discarded criminals discovering unexpected humanity, a traumatized man learning that vengeance isn't justice, or an alien choosing kindness as an act of faith. These films prioritize character over iconography, and paradoxically, that's what makes the symbols feel stronger. In films, when the emotional core is solid, the myths of them can fully breathe. This philosophy isn't limited to the films. It's already been proven on the television side. The Penguin works not because it expands Gotham lore, but because it treats Oswald Cobblepot as a man defined by insecurity, hunger, and resentment. Peacemaker succeeds by stripping its protagonist down to his ugliest impulses and forcing him to confront them, using sincerity where cynicism would have been easier. Creature Commandos, despite its absurd premise, grounds its story in loneliness, identity, and the desire to be seen. Different tones, different genres, but the same foundation. Character first, meaning always. That's the crucial shift. These projects don't ask, how do we make this bigger? They ask, why does this matter? And that question changes everything. It allows humor to coexist with pain, spectacle to coexist with restraint, and sincerity to exist without apology. It trusts the audiences to feel rather than just consume. In contrast, many earlier DC films felt like they were trying to convince us of their importance instead of earning it. Looking ahead, what's encouraging about upcoming projects like Supergirl and Clayface isn't their existence, it's the kind of stories they seem interested in telling. A Supergirl story rooted in displacement, grief, and rage. A Clayface story that leans into tragedy, identity, and loss rather than treating him as a gimmick. These aren't safe choices, they're deep, emotional ones, and that suggests a creative direction more concerned with emotional resonance than surface-level spectacle. That said, nothing is guaranteed. This could still go off the rails. Studio interference, franchise pressure, and overexpansion are always lurking threats. Momentum alone doesn't equal stability, but for the first time in a long time, DC feels like it's being guided by people who understand that stories don't last because they're loud, they last because they mean something. Because someone cared enough to ask what these characters represent to us, not just what they can do on screen. Right now, DC is in the hands of storytellers who genuinely care about characters, about emotion, about connection, and that doesn't mean every project will be perfect, but it does mean they're being built from the right place. From sincerity instead of cynicism, from humanity instead of abstraction, and if that commitment holds, then maybe. Finally, DC won't just be telling stories about heroes, it'll be telling stories that matter to the people watching. But as always, maybe I have no idea what I'm talking about. So until next time, keep watching movies, keep noticing the little details, and remember, to have a happy new year.